What if getting FDA approval was a bit easier when it comes to new drugs and treatments looking to come on the market? Well, joining us right now to talk more about this is former FDA Associate Commissioner and author of the brand new book, The Next Normal, Peter Pitts. Welcome back to Wake Up America.
My pleasure. Good morning.
Good morning.
So you just penned this op-ed, actually. It's a very interesting topic. And where you talk about, the push for an expedited approval process for the FDA. Is it even possible to speed this up? Because we saw with this vaccine, look, Trump and warp speed was a remarkable achievement in the medical community. We've never seen anything like that before. But on the other flip side of that, are these drug companies getting too complacent, like we saw with them recently submit the 5 and under vaccine for approval, and then they had to withdraw it because they didn't have enough information? Is there a give and take there?
Well, there definitely is, and there's a balance.
Right.
When drug companies want their drugs to get approved by the FDA more quickly or reviewed by the FDA more quickly, there are pathways to get that done. But that doesn't mean that you can skip the science, that it's a done deal. And that especially means you can't have interference from the outside, especially from places like the White House. Yeah. Political pressure can't drive the FDA. It hasn't, and it shouldn't in the future. I think that if you allow companies to understand that they can get their drugs on the market quicker, but they're going to have requirements to do real hard science once the drug is being given to people in the real world, that's a good step forward.
Yeah, let's talk about getting them out there quicker. You had a lot to say about Robert Califf. He was a scientist that Biden nominated to lead the FDA. And back in December, he actually said that he is a fan of this accelerated approval. What else should we know about him?
Rob Califf is a good guy. He's the right guy for the FDA right now. He's a scientist. He knows the agency. He has a very low learning curve, which is exactly what we need, considering that post has been empty for over a year, which is shameful. Wow. He's going to go in, he's going to kick ass and take names, and he's going to drive hard science. He's not going to allow anybody to get away with anything. No politics, straight science. He's got the best interests of patients at heart.
Yeah. Well, we were talking a little bit off air. You're pro-vaccine, but you are anti-mandate. Now, with that, this has been like the #1 topic for people across the country outside of the masking argument. So a couple things here. Do you think that the vaccine was rushed too much to market and pushed too hard by government via mandates and things like that to be an effective long-term strategy? You think it's always going to have this negative connotation with the mass over push of government?
Well, the vaccines that are on the market now are originally brought to market through what's called an emergency use authorization. So it's not an approval, but they're authorized for use. Now, it's appropriate. We were in the teeth of an emergency, and the variant that was with us at the time was quite deadly. But that doesn't mean that every product that treats COVID should be treated accordingly. Some are more important than others. And when you rush, you make mistakes. And when you look at for example, Pfizer retracting its applications for children 5 and younger because the data wasn't there, that's the right reason to withdraw it. But you don't want to embarrass yourself. You don't want to be forced to come forward before you're ready.
Yeah, but do you think that it was maybe a little bit too rushed in this whole thing? Because there's a lot of people look, I'm not vaccinated, but I have no problem with other people doing it. I'm a very healthy guy. Do you think that we should be able to release the data? Like, I know Pfizer was requesting 55 years to release their data. Is that helping the situation?
Well, on the one hand, obviously, intellectual property protection is incredibly important. You want to incentivize innovation. But on the other hand, people have doubts. This is an important public health issue, and data speaks the truth. Right. So I think it's important just to convince the American public that these vaccines are safe and effective, to make sure as much information is out there as possible.
I do definitely. When you talk about the accelerated approval and rushing, can you please break down what the Promising Pathways Act is? Because you said that's something that Congress needs to pass.
Sure. So Senator Braun, a Republican from Indiana, has this bill called Promising Pathways. And what it introduces is what's called a provisional approval. So the FDA could approve a drug for serious and life-threatening diseases where there are no treatments or not very good treatments available, and say, listen, we're going to allow you to go on the market. But if you don't collect the data in real time, if you don't report back, if the drug doesn't work, we're yanking it.
But it's very interesting, because how do you weigh the pros and the cons? Because when it comes to, obviously, we want to see long-term clinical trials on one hand, but then things like lung cancer treatment has actually done very well when it came to having that accelerated approval. How do you weigh the pros and the cons?
Well, the first thing you do is you take into serious consideration what patients have to say, what type of risks and benefits they're willing to accept. You need to collect the data, and you need to have a hammer to take the drug off the market if those studies aren't done.
Well, what do you think about Trump approving the right to try? Because that's, to go along with Alex's point, that is a very powerful thing for people who have no other options. And do you think that should be part of an approval process long term, should it work?
Well, right to try, in my opinion, is a bit of an empty suit. If doctors and patients go to the the FDA and ask for what's called expanded access before a drug is approved, they get it 99.9% of the time. You know, right to try doesn't necessarily mean right to get.
Right.
You know, when you work with the FDA, you get that drug in emergency situations.
Yeah.
All right,
Very
Peter Pitts.
interesting.
Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah.
A lot of information. This has been extremely informational for us and very helpful.
Sounds like you've done this before.
Well, I'm trying not to bore you. I'll do my best.
You definitely did not. Definitely, we would love for you to obviously come back once again. It's been a pleasure having you in studio this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, still plenty more to come right here on Wake Up America. Stay